Hello and welcome to the Holistic Interview Series by Wholistic Hounds. My name is Morgan Fitzgerald, and I'm a holistic dog groomer and animal Reiki practitioner, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and currently located in Central Oregon. Today, we're going to be interviewing Holly Matson of Lightseeds by Holly. Hello, Holly. How are you today?
Hey there, Morgan. We've been emailing and Facebooking for a while. It's nice to see you in face.
Yeah, it's great to have you today. So please introduce yourself and let us know more about what you offer animals.
Well, okay, I can do that. Um, I offer through Lightseeds is my company name. Lightseeds by Holly Reiki for animals. Usually I call it actually energy healing for animals. Reiki is the foundation of what I do, but it's energy work as I incorporate a lot of other things. And I do distance healing for animals of all kinds, usually pets, so that pet parents can contact me to set up a session for any kind of an issue that's going on with their pets.
Okay. What was your first experience with Reiki?
I had to think about that a long time ago, like maybe 30 years ago, perhaps. I went to see a massage therapist, and she told me as I lay down on the table that she incorporates Reiki. And I said, well, what's that? Never had heard of it. And so she was using Reiki along with the massage. And I remember distinctly 2 points. She hit sort of like the top of my back or lower neck. And I felt a whole lot of pressure, is the best way to describe it. And then also when she got to my feet, there was a distinct pop, and it freaked me out because I didn't know what it was, but it was just the energy releasing. You know how that goes. And
Yeah,
the that stayed with me. And then over the many years since then, I have had a bunch of Reiki sessions for myself. I've witnessed the results with people and animals and had to get into it.
absolutely. So, in your own words, can you share how Reiki can benefit animals?
Reiki can benefit anything. Um, it's specific to animals. I think it's because animals are so attuned to the natural world. They already live in vibration, which is really all Reiki is frequency. That's how they get along. That's how they survive. I mean, look at the birds following energy paths to move from place to place. So, because they're more in tune with that energy already, I think it's easier for them to understand and absorb. Sorry, cat fur. It's easier for them to understand and absorb this kind of energy work. I've seen, we'll talk about it, but I've seen all kinds of things happen with animals. Even here, I live in a semi rural spot. I've got bunnies and deer and everything else, and I'm always sending them energy.
How long have you been an animal Reiki practitioner?
Officially 3 years. I was certified in Reiki 2 3 years ago, roughly. But I've been doing, there's Buffy, come to help. Um, I've been doing energy work for quite some time. Before that, I learned quantum touch probably 25 years ago, which is akin to Reiki. It's kind of a similar intent. And then a couple of other kinds of energy practice in the meantime.
So you've been in the energy healing world for quite a while, it seems
I
then.
have, yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
it
So
felt
can
so
you share a
natural to me.
story of Reiki helping an animal? It can be either your own or a client's animal.
Hi. Maybe I should turn the floor over to Buffy. Um, by the way, she helps me with a lot of my sessions. I just think it's so cool. There have been a few, and I think one of my favorites is a cat.
Yeah, I always love
Uh,
the
the sit down, please. I had a client come to me a couple of years ago with a cat that she had had for a bit of time, but the cat had originally been a street cat. She was feral. And this cat lived comfortably inside, but was extremely skittish, still very fearful of humans. And so her pet mom came to me for a session to see if the energy healing could help. And after, golly, two, possibly three sessions, I don't remember now, She was starting to chase her tail. She'd race around the house. She was playing with toys. She allowed pets. I explained to her in the session, because communication is kind of a part of it for me. It's not, I'm not a communicator, but it's part of the work. I explained to this kitty that it was safe to be indoors, that here's what love would feel like. And I sent her the Reiki. And I said, you can play, you'll have room, you're safe. And it just took 2 or 3 sessions of doing that kind of communication, along with the energy healing, a lot of soothing, a lot of removal of fears. She was just having the best time, and she still is. I hear that from her pet parent. The only time I think she's still fearful is if the pet parent has to go away for a little bit, but we still deal with that. I just remind her, you know where you came from, you're safe. Another one that I love was kind of when I was first starting. A friend had an elderly, very elderly border collie. I think she was 16, and that's really old for a border collie. And she would walk with a tilt. She had some kind of vestibular issues. She may have had a stroke, we don't know, but she'd wobble a bit and she walked with a tilt. And I gave her a couple of sessions. I offered her a couple of sessions of Reiki. And so my friend reported back that the neighbor wondered what had happened to the dog, because suddenly the dog was walking upright. I just love that. As I said, they're just really,
Yeah.
really receptive. There are
Thank you for
more, but I
sharing
could
those
go on for
stories.
too long.
So, for someone who isn't spiritually minded or familiar with energy work, how would you describe the way Reiki works?
That's a really challenging question, because it's one of those things that kind of hard to put into words. For one thing, I don't believe in that I'm trying to convince anyone of anything. They can come to it or not, but I do have a visual prop here, and I wanted to share this. I use this all the time in interviews. This is just a solar lantern. Here's the receptor. It soaks up solar energy, solar frequency, and puts it into the battery. And then when it's needed, here's the result. There's also I'm not trying to sell this. There's also a USB port here. So that's what I am. I am this. I am transmitting universal energy into my battery, and then putting it out into the universe. Sorry, it's very unprofessional, but puffy fur. Putting it out into the universe for the animal to accept, if the animal wishes to do that. So it's also, the other analogy I use sometimes is, it's kind of like a remote control. You know, you have how many remotes in your house, and they each know which item to turn on, and the frequency is different for each, but once you pair it, it works. And so I ask, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I ask for a photo of the pet that I'm going to work on, with the eyes showing, because that's how I connect. And that's how I connect with their frequency. It's the pairing for me. So there's nothing woo about it. It's all completely scientific, and there've been a lot of studies on how effective it is.
Absolutely. I love the analogy that you use. I know
Mm.
sometimes you say it's like a Wi-Fi kind
Yeah,
of, like
yeah,
the connection. I like that.
exactly. Exactly. No wires needed.
Absolutely. So in your practice, do you emphasize the need to stay grounded and balanced in your own energy?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I've always kind of lived in my head. I've always been solitary. I love it. I love to read. I love to do things in here. And so it's too easy for me to get kind of spacey and out there. And even though the energy work is non physical, I still have to get grounded into the earth to connect. I mean, to me, the animal's really connected to the earth, and so I definitely have to ground. I do as regularly as I can. Probably not as regularly as I should. I'll do qigong or tai chi or something like that. I love to garden. Getting my hands in the dirt, it's all literally grounding.
Yeah.
And so for me, and also a lot of people use crystals in different ways. I'm not a big crystal person, but I have a big chunk of selenite that I set on my lap. And for some reason, I can feel the grounding from that. I can feel the grounding going out my feet. Um, And so, yeah, that's a really good question, a really important point. You know, as I'm doing the non-physical work, I do have to stay in my body.
Yeah. Grounding is definitely important to keep that overall balance.
Exactly.
So, how
And
can Reiki help an animal who is anxious, depressed, or traumatized?
I already mentioned some of that, but I'll just repeat some just because I want to put it in this context. Like the kitty who was feral. Energy work, especially distance energy work, allows an animal to begin to trust. Um, there's some years ago, a dog that I was working on said, "Oh, it's warm, it's warm." And the next time the dog came to me, "I want more warm." And that's kind of become the theme. That's the term I use now. When I invite an animal for Reiki, I say, "You want some warm?" It's like you want a treat. And I think that an animal that's been fearful, when a person that's been fearful or traumatized or anything like that, when they sense that calm that's in the warm, and the warm is just energy, and they start to sense that they're protected and that they're loved, they start that shell starts to crack a bit, you know. Um, and not just with the cat that I mentioned, but with a lot of other animals, I've noticed a lot of changes in how reactive they might be, or um, how much they hide, how much they don't interact with people or other animals, and so energy work to me of any kind, but especially this Reiki based, is really effective for that.
I agree. It's very good at helping an animal to feel safe after potentially being abused by humans.
Mhm.
We can kind of remind them through energy that they're safe now and that they can move forward with trust
Exactly.
with certain people.
And two, what I've discovered is when I've worked with a lot of animals that have had surgery or illness, it's kind of the same thing there. It's a form of trauma, especially if they've had surgery. It's a physical trauma.
Mhm.
And they're wiser than we are, and they know what was going on in the body. But that sense, as you just said, of trust now. Now this is done. Now we're going to move forward, and here's what it feels like. And I think it's really important.
Absolutely. So, what is the most profound lesson that Animal Reiki has taught you?
I think the biggest has been, well, I've always been extremely attuned to animals, more so than with people. And I hear that from a lot of introverts and a lot of practitioners. And I understood them on one level. But once I got into the energy work, and especially the communications part of it, I have a whole new level of respect, a whole new level of understanding that these are sentient beings. These are no less than human. They're different. They communicate differently. They behave. They react differently. Of course, we're all different kinds of energy. It's like, you know, which Wi-Fi is going, or which remote is going to which device. And for me, it's the sense of, I guess, awe, because whatever source made us made all these other creatures. Whether it's, I'm not going to get into that philosophical discussion, but these creatures are no less than we are, and in many cases far, far wiser, because they are so attuned to the natural world, because they are in that energy. They don't have some of the intellectual chatter and clutter that we do. And I
Right.
think that's been, at first it was kind of a surprise, and now it's like, oh, okay, good. I've learned a lot from these animals that I've worked with.
Yeah, they are great teachers. And I absolutely agree that Reiki and other energy healing modalities with animals, it kind of puts you guys on equal playing field where we're no longer the boss or the one in
Yeah,
charge or
yeah,
the superior entity, but we're
mhm,
kind of on level playing field
yeah.
and we can kind of meet them where they are. So you
And I
already
think
answered this that you
along
offer
with
distance
that,
healing.
that it's the idea of, um, oh, was I going to say about that? Oh, with intuition and all of that. I think most practitioners do this, but I know I do. We invite. We don't give Reiki. We don't give energy. We invite them to partake if they want to. And I think that's part of the respect.
Yeah, I love that. And what I say is it's kind of like opening up a channel and then allowing them to choose whether they want to step into it or not.
Right.
And so you already answered this, but you offer distant healing. So why did you choose to offer distant rather than hands-on healing?
Oh, there's so many reasons, but the basics. First off, if you have any kind of an animal that's been traumatized or fearful or is ill or anything, you don't want to drag them off to some stranger's office or home for healing. And with cats, that's even more of a challenge. We all know what it's like to try to get a cat in a carrier. It's not, I don't, there are a lot of practitioners who do live and in person. Great. They have different ways of doing it from how I would probably. I chose to stay only in energy because to me, that's more truth than the physicality. Because you could have an animal that's acting all cheerful, but when you get into their energy, they're fearful. And the cheerful is just a front, like a person who's putting on a mask.
Mhm.
So I think it's important for me to stick with the energy, and it's more gentle. It's straight to the source, I guess you could say. I think there are a lot of practitioners who, of course, either have an office or go to a client's home. Same thing. Do you want a pet? Now, there are friendly pets out there. I have two. Hi, who are you? Come and pet me. But if you're inviting a stranger into your home, then that adds a different level of trauma or a different level of fear. And I would rather just stay in the warm, and stay in the soft, gentle energy. And it's more soothing, I think, for the pet, more trustworthy for the pet. That's just how I do it.
Yeah, in my experience, I have found that sometimes working at a distance, you get more out of it sometimes, at least from my perspective. That
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm in person, I can be distracted or have
Mhm.
preconceived judgments, maybe.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it at a distance, I feel like those judgments aren't there as much and that
Yeah.
you're able to be more detached and actually offer a higher level of healing energy than
Mhm.
sometimes you would in person.
Well
So I
put.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you just quickly go through the process of how you would conduct an animal Reiki session?
Mm, sure. Giving away trade secrets. They're not that secret. um, when someone contacts me for an appointment, the first thing I do is ask for a 15-minute phone call. And that's just to get acquainted, ask questions back and forth, tell me what you want, that kind of a thing. And when after that, within a couple of days, I will set up for myself. The parent isn't involved really yet. I'll set up an appointment with myself to do the session for the pet. And after getting myself into that good position and doing my Reiki practices and meditations and all that, as far as the pet's concerned, I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole thing because I do have a whole like spiritual, metaphysical Reiki practice in my mind. But something that I learned in one of my trainings that I absolutely love, it just felt so right, and it has been right in my practice, is to make a bridge. Not the rainbow bridge. No, mind you, this is much happier.
Mhm.
I imagine a bridge between me and some other spot. It's usually kind of foresty. And there's a mist, and I imagine that mist is love. And I see the pet based on the picture that I've received. I see the pet on the other side of that bridge, and I start chatting with them and saying, here's what the worm feels like, and you're welcome to come if you want. And I've only had maybe 3 in the last few years that chose to stay where they were, and that's fine. I'll always say, here's what it feels like if you want to come closer. And there's only been a couple that were so fearful they didn't. And I offered Reiki. I don't know that they took it, and that's fine because it's on them. But when the pet comes to me, and sometimes I can almost feel their physical presence. It's just, I get goosebumps. It's so fun when they do that. I have a favorite dog that I work with that I can feel bounce across the bridge and bounce into my lap. they climb into my lap, like telepathically speaking, and I pet them or talk to them or whatever's appropriate and start doing the actual energy work. I remember one training that I had that said, well, animals don't have chakras the way people do. And she meant they don't have chakras. And I completely disagree with that. I feel them, I feel the energy spots. So I do the energy work. We chat if need be. I'll invite them if they have anything they want to say. And I'll make note of what I sent, what I sense, and I'll usually literally make notes. I have a pad beside me. And when it feels done, and you as a practitioner know when it feels done, then I'll thank the pet and say, is there anything else you want to talk about? And if they're done, I send them back over the bridge to go home. And then I send a detailed report to the pet parent through email of what I sensed, what I saw, what they could try, if there's other issues going on. And that's it. It's pretty simple. They take 20 to 30 minutes each, depending. There's been a couple of pets after surgery that took longer because they really needed a lot of physical work. So it works. That's the best thing I can say. That's my method, and it works.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. I'm always interested in learning about how other practitioners offer their sessions, but it sounds very similar to what I offer when I do a
Oh,
distance session, the
nice.
connection and then the follow-up
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
the client. So
Do you do something similar with that initial connection? Like, how do you initially
yeah,
connect?
so I do something very similar. So I don't have a lot of clients for distant Reiki,
Mhm,
but when I do a distant Reiki session, I don't do a photo per se, but I get just the animal's name
mhm,
and usually maybe some general background. And then I do very similar to what you do,
mhm,
where I don't talk to the client during the session so that I can
mhm,
connect energetically better, and then
mhm,
I connect for whatever length of time. So I do the sessions based on time.
mhm.
So if somebody wants 30 minutes, then we'll do 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So I kind of do it like that. So
Okay.
30 minutes is usually about the average time, I'd say 30 minutes. And then
Oh,
once the session's over, I do what you do. I
mhm,
kind of make a notepad of some of the
mhm,
more important notes that I send so that I don't forget. And then I do my follow-up just like through email
mhm,
or through the phone if somebody wants that. And I just say what I sense. And I
mhm,
say what I sense, and then I give them the opportunity to let me know if there was anything that they observed with their animal or that sort of thing to see
mhm,
kind of if we're kind of in alignment with what we were sensing. And a lot of times it is in alignment. And
mhm,
I've also realized that sometimes you'll have an insight during one session that won't really make any sense, but then maybe 2 sessions later or,
mhm.
a month later, you'll be like, "Okay, now I know what that meant." And then
Yes.
it's really cool because the client can also confirm that for you and kind of
Mhm,
validate because maybe you weren't sure what you were sensing or what
mhm.
info you were getting, but you told them anyways. And then a couple of weeks later, they're like, now that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's really powerful to kind of
Isn't that
see how
fun?
it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, do you think most animals display releases during a session? And if they do, what might those look like?
For me, the sessions that I've done, it's only a few that I've sensed an actual, what I would call a release. And it varies. It kind of depends on what's going on with the animal. But sometimes, like when I'm doing the actual energy work, I might feel a pulse, or I might feel, I call them glitches. Trying to think of another good word, like a pulse or a little burst of energy. The thing that I was just astounded by the first time it happened to me was when a pet, I can't remember what the issue was, but I saw kind of like black lightning bolts, if you can imagine that, coming out of the pet. And another time I saw what looked like sort of a fountain of mist coming up out of it, but black. And I don't believe in evil. It was nothing dark. It was dark as in the absence of the light that we were offering them. It
Mhm.
was the negative energy that needed to come out, and I just thought that was so cool. It was kind of like, venom coming out, and from what I heard from the pet parents, those the results over time, over the next couple of weeks, were more powerful with those than with some of the more subtle kinds of healings. Mostly what I sense that tells me that we're done is just the energy's calm, but that release thing is it's just amazing when it happens. I love how that, like I said, especially seeing different variations of that blackness come out, then I know something's really happening.
Yeah, and sometimes for like in-person sessions, you might see like the animal yawn, or you might
Mhm,
see them go into what we call a Reiki nap, where they're just really
mhm,
nice and relaxed. So those can be some
mhm,
examples of some releases as well.
mhm.
So moving on, if you could say one thing to an animal Reiki skeptic, what would it be?
Well, as I said, I don't feel like I need to convert anybody, but I encourage, and I use this analogy all the time. Um, and I think the biggest bit of advice is try it. It's kind of like someone who's a skeptic about a certain ethnic food. Well, try it.
Mhm.
Go get a Reiki session, or get a session for your pet or whatever, and try it. What have you got to lose? If it's great, it's great. If you don't sense anything, it's still great because it's still working, whether you know it or not.
Right.
Um, but I always stress that there are no fireworks. It's not like, ta-da, I'm fixed. It doesn't work that way. It's energy. And it's just as subtle as how, and are you conscious of your digestive system working? Are you conscious of the cells in your fingertip working? No. And to me, it's the kind of the same principle. It's your body is using the energy as it needs to. So trust it, try it, and if you don't like it, great.
Yeah, I agree. I always say to anybody that's a little bit hesitant, maybe just to keep their heart and mind open,
Yes.
kind of like some of the Reiki precepts where it says, just for today, do not worry.
Yes.
So I always say, just for today, keep
Mhm,
an open mind and an open heart. And I
mhm.
think that's the key to kind of accepting that healing energy into your life is being
Yes,
open to it.
truly.
So, what has been your biggest challenge as an animal Reiki healer?
For me, I've always been kind of the fixer. Even growing up, I was the one who had to make things right. And so the biggest lesson for me about being a practitioner is letting go of the result. It's not my responsibility because I'm a channel. Like I said, if this is me, I'm not the one making a change. The animal himself, here herself, itself is making the change in its body. And to me, it's the higher self, it's the oversoul, whatever terminology you want to use. So for me, it's letting go of my responsibility in the result. My role is to be the channel, and if I've done that to the best of my ability, and I always do, I mean, that's my intention, then the rest needs to be let go. I've had several, I think every practitioner has had several pets die, and my attitude was great. I gave them some soothing and some calming and the freedom to leave if they want to. It wasn't that those were failures because I can't cure or fix anyone. I'm not a healer. I'm a facilitator, just like all practitioners. We facilitate the energy flow to allow the body to heal itself. So, understanding that on a really deep level has been the thing that I've struggled with the most. And I think I'm finally there. It's like, okay, it is what it is. And I'm learning, excuse me, I'm learning to let go of that.
Yeah, I agree with that because I kind of learned through Reiki that humans have a very different view of what healing looks like than the animals do.
Very
So,
true.
what I have kind of taught myself is that healing doesn't always look like what we think it will.
Hmm.
And what I've discovered on my path working with animals through energy work is that honestly, sometimes their healing is dying.
Yes.
And we we always associate death with something negative, or,
Mhm.
we lose that animal, so we're sad. But I've learned through energy work that sometimes that is the best thing for that animal,
Yes.
especially if they're, suffering
Mhm.
immensely while they're living, or they have a physical ailment that just physically won't get better. And I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes that we have like more of a negative view on death sometimes, but the animals don't. And they
Right.
kind of just see it's not an end for them, but it's
Right.
more or less a door opening, and it's
Yes.
kind of like a new path.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely, with Reiki and energy healing, it helps you kind of accept that death is part of healing.
Yes. Totally
So
with
I
you
think,
there. That's really well put.
but it's hard for us as humans to kind of accept those losses
Yeah.
sometimes.
Very
So I
true.
think it's really important to be mindful that those animals are still with us even when
Mhm.
they pass on.
Yeah.
So do you think that Reiki enhances your connection with animals?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I've already described some of that. It's something new's been happening. This is a good time to bring it up. Something new has been happening to me over the last few months when I do a session or when I connect with an animal, even like the bunnies that were out there this morning. Excuse me. How to explain it? When I go into a session and start to connect with an animal, or when I look at the bunny and send love, I start to get that kind of prickle in the eyes, like I want to cry. And I don't need to cry. It's just like it's a connection of emotion, of energy, and that tells me that was like the click, the pairing, and that just gave me goosebumps the first time it happened, and now I kind of expect it. Um, and feeling the power of that connection, feeling the sense of truth about it has been really, really powerful. And I have more of a respect for animals now, and really all of nature. I mean, I know as a practitioner, this kind of energy work is great for the trees, or I'll send energy to my garden or whatever. I've heard of people sending energy to a car engine as it breaks down.
Mhm.
It's all energy. I suppose that would work. But for me, that true energetic connection has been so powerful, and it's really made me more aware of how sentient these creatures are.
And that's so beautiful to have that knowing
Yeah,
with energy healing.
yeah,
It's kind of, you get to a point where you don't question the animal's abilities anymore, and you
mhm,
get to a space of trusting in your own abilities as well. And I think that's really, really beautiful.
yeah.
Do you think Reiki can benefit any animal?
Oh, yeah, and we've already alluded to some of that too. I think energy, as I just said a minute ago, energy like this, Reiki based, or really any, it can be used, if you want to use that term, by anything. Anything that has energy can benefit by that vibration, because all we're doing is channeling um the universal energy. I mean, the oh, sorry. The hazard of living with cats. Um, for those who don't know, Reiki essentially means universal energy. And so when you're channeling that, um, it's it's almost like a purification. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we have one more question.
Okay.
If you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
That's a really good question. I've been asked this recently. I had to really think about it. Um, I have favorite animals like cats and dogs, and I have animals that I feel an affinity with, but what would I most like to be would probably be an elephant. For one thing, I'm very small. I'm 5 feet tall, and I would love to be huge. But also, they are so intelligent, and they are so in tune with each other and with the earth, and they have their family groups and their rituals and all of this. They are just brilliant animals on a physical level, intellectual, but also spiritual. And I really, really admire them. It breaks my heart if I run across any kinds of videos about, abandoned or hurt or anything else, really all animals, but especially elephants, I just can't stand it. So definitely I want to be an elephant next time around.
That's beautiful. I think it would be really cool and interesting to have a trunk too.
Yes, yes, that would be fun. And I love watching the videos of baby elephants not quite knowing what to do with them and they floop around. It's just so cute.
They're so cute. So is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience about Reiki or just in general about animals?
Um, as I said before, just trust. And as you said, is to have an open mind. If you can keep in mind the analogies that we've used in this talk as to kind of scientifically why it works. If you're a real hardcore skeptic, you can do some research. But the best research for me is to try it, see what you think. Um, and here's your plug. If you want more information about what I do, it's at lightseedsbyholly.com. That's my website. And I don't mind having chats with people whenever I have the time, but I recommend just try it. Schedule something for your pet, schedule something for yourself.
Absolutely. And you shared your website. Is there anywhere else where people can find you?
Well, actually, yeah, I'm on Facebook as well. I remember having a limit on the name, but I think it's, if you look up Lightseeds Holly in the search bar, you'll find me. I think it's there just under Lightseeds by Holly. And I post a lot there. I'll do questions. If I'm having a sale on something, I'll put it there as well. So that's a great place to start chats.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
time with us today. And hopefully, we'll have the opportunity to have more chats about animal Reiki because there is a lot to talk about.
There is just animals in general. I'm so tickled, Morgan, that you invited me. Thank you so much. This has been great. And it's been fun for me speaking with someone who kind of knows what it's like since you're a practitioner. It's just been fun.
Absolutely. So, thanks again. And we will continue next time with the Holistic Interview Series with a cooperative care grooming specialist. So,
Mhm.
thank you all for joining us today.